If I asked you how your day started this morning, would your answer actually reflect your faith? Not the version you wish you lived, the real one. Did you reach for God or your phone? Did your mind start with peace or pressure? Because here's the truth, your habits are revealing. They show what you actually value, what you actually believe, and what's really leading your life. And it's not just your mornings, it's how you end your day too. Those small daily rhythms, they're shaping your identity and your walk with God. So today, we're getting honest. What do your habits say about what you actually believe? Welcome back to the Confident Kingdom Woman podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Confident Kingdom Woman podcast. And in today's episode, we are talking all about habits, morning habits, evening habits, all of the habits.
This is one of my favorite topics.
Really?
I'm obsessed with habits and routines. I am.
So we have a lot to dive into because I feel like it's something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, because normally when we talk about habits, we're only talking about starting new habits or breaking bad habits.
Mhm.
But if we just plainly break it down, habits are just anything you do consistently. That's it. Subconsciously, consciously, just things that you do.
So that means you already do have habits.
You have habits,
Mhm.
whether you realize it or not.
I think it's just a matter of being intentional about what habits we develop.
That part. And so in today's episode, we are going to dive into some of the purpose of habits, right? And how we can make them really intentional in our everyday life. And then we're also going to talk about what habits as confident kingdom women you should have. Morning habits, specifically evening habits, and what tips and tricks we have in terms of making them a reality in your life. So let's just dive into it, because when we think of habits, a lot of people, I think, sometimes forget what the importance of having habits are, because our days are so busy. Sometimes we can just get so caught up in just doing things, right? You got to get up, you got to get ready, you may have to get the kids ready, you run to work, you have to eat, you have to come home. Like, we just have so many things happening that we forget the habits that we've created in our life is really what takes up probably, I would say, 70 to 80% of our day.
Mhm.
And most people don't realize that. And so let's just talk about the importance of having solid habits.
I think, first of all, like you mentioned, we have so many things to do, right?
Mhm.
And I think for a lot of us, if we're not careful, we will end up living life like flying by the seat of our pants. And I think, if we go back to season 1, how we talked about that self-inflicted, self-induced stress.
Yes.
A lot of the stress that we have in our lives is because we lack structure and routine and habits in our life. And so we're just going by whatever,
Yep.
is calling us or whatever is needing our attention in that moment. And so we end up just being, feeling overwhelmed, feeling
Mhm.
stressed out because we lack routine, structure, and good habits that are going to lead us to where we actually want to be.
Why do you feel like people think structure is such a bad word?
I just think it's just, for a lot of people, that's just their personality.
Mhm.
They're free-spirited people. And
Yeah.
so, they just have a hard time reeling themselves in and doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done, as opposed to just,
Kind of going with the flow.
just going with the flow. But then I think on the other side, there are other people who are the opposite.
Very true.
Who are naturally very regimented people,
Mhm.
and structured people. Now, that could work for or against you.
True.
Really, because, there are a such thing as bad habits too.
There are. And so let's talk about that, because we want you to understand that as kingdom women, as confident women, as ambitious women, all of the things, there needs to be some level of structure in your life.
Yes, structure is not a bad word.
It's not. And we know that God is purposeful, but he created structure and order. When you think about how he made the world, how everything was systematically placed, there is structure and order to that. And a lot of times when we think of structure, I think sometimes we think of it in a negative connotation because people think it keeps them in a box. But sometimes those boxes are for safety, not necessarily to keep you from being free spirited. And don't get me wrong, like I think I balance the idea of like being rigid and being free spirited. But even
Not
those
me.
of you, we are opposite in that way. Barbara's like, I am disciplined and I am structured. Yes. But even those of us who may say, I'm a little more free spirited, there's still structure in our lives. There's things that we do day in and day out, or every week or every month, sometimes without realizing it. But as you said, there's also a lot of bad habits. And let's just break this down really quick.
Mm-hmm.
A habit is a habit. Whether it's a bad habit or a good habit, it's based on the connotation we give it.
Or intentional or unintentional.
Exactly. A habit is a habit. It is something that you do that your brain has been trained to do. And so there are a lot of bad habits that we have that actually keep us stuck, right? There's things that we do day in and day out. It could be the things that we eat, the things that we watch, scrolling for hours, super guilty of that. Like there are many habits that we do that could be detrimental to what we're trying to achieve, but then there could also be really good habits that we know actually keep us going in our day to day. And so I wanted to put that out there because it's like a habit is a habit, whether it's good or bad, completely depends on the connotation. So yeah.
I think when we think about habits, what we want to understand is that anything that you do continually or consistently, there's going to be an end result.
Yes.
Like it is leading you to somewhere. And so I think we have to be mindful of, okay, this thing that I'm doing every single day over the course of however many weeks, months, years, where is this getting me to? Where is this leading me to? Am I going to like the end result? Before we started recording, I gave a little, confession about my coffee creamer habit.
I was going to bring it up.
You were going to bring it up. Yeah. And so I just, think about how for the last several years, probably just about every day I've had coffee creamer, which has added probably an additional 150. You know what I just thought about?
What?
Oh, the Bible says that if we confess our faults to one another, there's healing in there, right?
There we go. Let's do it.
I just recently started drinking coffee twice a day. See, I'm confessing my habits, y'all. I'm confessing my faults one to another. But think about my point. I had a point.
Yes.
Is that those little calories over time, they're going to add up.
They add up, of course.
And if I'm honest with myself, I don't like where that's going to lead me to. So if I don't want those results, guess what I'm going to have to do?
You're going to have to change something.
I'm going to have to change that habit.
Yep, exactly. And that, I'm so glad you brought it up because I was going to, but it's such a good example of something so small, something that someone could say is so minuscule that does that really have an effect on my day? And I think that what we're trying to get you to think about is the habits that we're talking about. It's not about does it affect your day? We're talking about the compound effect of these habits in your life, good or bad, right? So let's preface. Coffee and coffee creamer is not bad, not terrible, but if you have certain goals in your life, it may not be beneficial to the goals that you're trying to reach.
Absolutely.
Right? So again, we're not trying to say like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. No, we just want you to pause and take a look at where am I going? Where am I trying to get to? Because if the habits that you have in your day are impacting that, then that means you may need to make a change.
Absolutely.
And it could be in the small areas, right? And so now I think we've talked a lot about just habits in general, but let's talk about the importance of actual morning habits and evening habits, because I think this is where people get caught up.
I need to say something real quick.
Go for it.
Because when you talked about that compound effect, I think a lot of times when we try to make a positive habit or a positive change and develop a new habit that is good, sometimes we get discouraged because we don't see the results right away. And I think it's so important that we have a long-term mindset when it comes to this because, me drinking the coffee creamer, it didn't put 5 pounds on me overnight.
Right.
Just like you going to the gym for a week isn't going to, give you your dream body. You know what I mean?
Right,
So don't be discouraged if you don't see the results right away because it's a compound effect, which means you'll see the results, but you have to stick with it.
All eventually. Now, there are some things that you may do that may immediately impact you, but those are normally not habits. Those are normally decisions. And so let's just clarify that. We're talking about the things you do either day in and day out or on a consistent basis. And that's so true. We'll leave some book recommendations in the description because there's a lot of really great, especially personal development books that talk about habits and different things like that. So we'll leave that. But yeah, let's talk about the morning routine because I think this is something that can easily set you up for failure or set you up for success. And let's just preface, we are not going to say that everybody needs to become a 5 a.m. person. It may not be for you. It could be. But really, we're just going to talk about the practical things that you can do in your everyday life to set you up for success in the morning. And so, Barbara, do you want to go first?
Sure. I want to talk about intentionality in starting your day.
Yeah.
because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
100%.
Okay. So it is so, so, so important that we start our day with some intentionality, starting our day on purpose in a way that's going to set us up for success rather than chaos.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that too is where a lot of people don't realize in today's day and age, most of us are waking up in a very reactive state. We are waking up and we're immediately jumping onto our phone. And what's on your phone? Probably 9 times out of 10, something negative, something in the tabloids, something happening across the world, something distressing. Like, normally nobody is waking up to like the funniest video ever. Witness here. It doesn't happen, right? And so if you can just find moments in your morning to set you up for success, I'm not saying, because here's the thing, I think sometimes, especially based on social media, you see the perfect morning routines, right? Like they wake
I
up.
don't believe any of those videos.
It's
No, I don't believe any of them at all.
it's quiet. You have your coffee, everything looks perfect. And although that may be their morning, for a majority of people, that's not their morning, right? Most people have lots of responsibilities and things to take care of. And so, Barbara, how do you start your morning with intentionality?
Well, first of all, just knowing how much time do I need in the morning is important.
Yeah.
Okay, because the moment you cut yourself short on your time, you're already rushing.
Yeah.
And so I think, like Laura said, you don't have to wake up at 5 o'clock, but you do need to wake up early enough to where you don't start off your day rushing.
Yeah.
So for me, that's between 5:30 and 6 o'clock. And that gives me enough time to spend some sort of time with the Lord. I usually read devotionals in the morning, pray. Now that I've discovered they have that music on the YouVersion app,
Yeah.
I've been using that in the mornings as well. So that's really the main thing in the morning, is just having time to spend with the Lord. And really, y'all, sometimes I just sit there.
Yeah.
I just sit there sometimes. Like, it doesn't have to be, some structured thing, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's just, I just sit there and just allow myself to just think, to just reflect, see what the Lord has put on my heart, just start the morning off in some stillness. That's what works for me.
There you go. Yeah. And I love that you said that's what works for you, because that's the big takeaway here. You have to find out what works for your morning, right? You don't want to wake up rushing and trying to just get through, but like, where can you give yourself a couple of minutes, 5 minutes? If you have 10 to 15 minutes, great. If you got 30 minutes, great. But what works in your schedule that allows you just some time to reflect? I think if I have to add anything to that, because I do that as well, 100%. I wake up and I know if I want to have a really good day, for me personally, I have to spend some type of time with the Lord. And I've seen posts recently that I really resonate with, because some people are like, you know what? It may not be that you have 30 minutes to get into like a deep, prayer closet, but you may have 5 minutes just say, Lord, help me today with whatever it is that I have going on. And that is enough. And I think sometimes we have to stop putting our expectation of what a good quiet time or morning time looks like for other people, because it may not be realistic for their life. So definitely having some quiet time. What about anything else you do in your mornings? You said you get up, give yourself enough time to just have a few moments. And then is there anything else you do that really helps to just set you up for success in the mornings?
I think honestly, most of my preparation is in the evenings.
That's the key.
That's the key. And that is really the revelation that I received, because I know for me, my morning flows much more smoothly when I don't have to get my clothes ready,
Yep.
pack my lunch, clean up or whatever. And so if I can master my evening routine, my mornings flow so much more smoothly. Because really the only thing I do in the morning, once I have my prayer time and drink my coffee, make my bed and get myself together, I'm good.
That's it.
That's it. Some people like to work out in the morning, but I can't. I can't do that.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a morning workout person.
In this, like, there have been seasons where I did, but right now I can't do that.
But that's good.
Right.
Because it doesn't have to be like permanent.
Right.
I think sometimes, especially when we hear about routines and things online, everyone assumes it has to be like, this is just the way it's going to be forever.
Yeah.
That is so unrealistic.
It is.
Yeah, no. Well, for right now in my life, I am a morning workout person, but I used to be evening, like early in my 20s, like I would get off work and then either like do a workout class or go do something. So All depends.
Mhm.
But I am glad that you mentioned the evening routine because I truly believe that is the success that sets you up in the morning. Like you said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we don't realize how quickly the morning goes by. But in the evenings, normally we have a few minutes. It may not be a lot depending on your responsibilities, but we do have a few more minutes in the evening if we structure ourselves properly to set ourselves up. And so let's talk about just the evening routine because I think that is the key between people who feel like they have good routines and people who don't. Because it's easy to have a morning routine. It is, I'm not going to say difficult. You have to be intentional to have an evening routine. So let's talk about the evening routines.
It is because you've given so much throughout the day already.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you get off from work, if you work a typical 9 to 5 job, it's like,
Yeah.
I just want to sit down,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, if you sit down, you're going to set yourself up for a chaotic
Yeah.
morning the next day.
Yeah.
And so I know for me, just having some structure in the evening was really a game changer for me. So
Mm.
typically when I do get off, first of all, I had to start getting to work earlier
Mm.
because I was noticing by the time 5 o'clock, 5:30, and I'm just getting home, by the time you come home, work out, eat dinner, it's time to go to bed and do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have to, it was like a vicious cycle, to be honest, because, waking up late made me get to work late, got off late, went to bed late,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a vicious cycle. And so I had to break the vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And I know I was just getting back into the 9 to 5 routine because I hadn't worked a full-time job in so long.
Yeah.
So it took me over a year to really find a good rhythm
Yeah.
that worked for me. But eventually I realized, okay, I gotta pull this together. And
Right.
so I sat down and I really thought about, okay, what do I have time to do in the evenings? What do I need to do in the evenings? And so I do give myself some time to just relax,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't relax too much. You just gotta give yourself, a minute to, wind down, whatever you need to do. And then, go to the gym
Mm-hmm.
if you have, that's typically what I do. And then, I try to meal prep
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of the week
Yeah.
because if I'm cooking every day, that's that's gonna just throw off the whole thing for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to try to, meal prep throughout the week so that I only have to cook once or twice,
Nice.
So after that, if I need to tidy up,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good time to take a minute to tidy up. Now, just like Laura said about the quiet time, you don't have to do things for an hour.
Right. Yeah.
How much tidying up can you get done if you just, tidy up for 15 minutes?
It's like Parkinson's law.
Oh,
Whatever
yeah,
time
yes,
you
yes,
give to
yes.
something is how much time it's going to take.
Exactly. So just, it doesn't have to be this long drawn out thing, but just what can I tidy up in just a few minutes? And then, the Bible says that we should meditate in the word day and night.
Mm-hmm.
So I do try to, make that a habit to where I do read scripture before I go to bed, get my clothes ready for the next day,
Yep.
and it's lights out.
There you go. And I think you said something really powerful there because a lot of people don't realize that when it comes to your evenings, it's what you make of it. Now, everyone's evening may not start at 5 or 6 o'clock. It could be spread out, but whatever time you have, be intentional with that time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. I think sometimes that's a misconception because depending on how you work, how I work, our schedules, it could be different, but it's all the same amount of time. Your bedtime does not have to match my bedtime, vice versa, right? But how can you be intentional with the time that you have at night? So it depends on how you set yourself up. It depends on giving yourself time to rest, because I think that's very important. But then also, what are the things that you can do today that'll make it easier for tomorrow?
Exactly.
That's the key to not waking up super reactive or in a rush.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not saying it has to be perfect every day, but it should be somewhat intentional to where, you know what, maybe Monday through Wednesday, you're like, all right, I need to do these things because of XYZ. And then maybe on Thursday evenings, you have a little bit more time, or maybe Saturday evenings. Like you have to figure out what's the rhythm for your life in this season right now. And how can you make it easier to get things done while you have the time you have?
You said something important. It's not going to be perfect every day.
Mm-mm.
And my routine is not perfect every day. And so I think we have to make sure that if we, don't follow the plan to a T, that we don't beat ourselves up over that.
Right.
Because you mentioned it earlier, His mercies are new every morning.
Mm-hmm.
So if I didn't get it right today, if I skipped my workout today, or I didn't wake up early today, or I skipped my devotional time today, guess what? You have another opportunity to get it right tomorrow.
Exactly. And that, I think, is what I love so much about evening routines. Evening routines really should be about closure and preparation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like close out your day, whatever happened today, let it, I'm not going to say let it go because I know that can be hard, but kind of just settle it. Settle in your soul, settle it in your heart, right? Whatever that looks like. And then prepare for tomorrow, right? I think one of the things that I did really well in the last couple of years is I used to always make my to-do list at night. So that way, before I go to bed, I'm just getting everything off of my brain. And that way, when I wake up in the morning, I already know, like, yeah, these are the things that I have to do. These are the things I didn't get done yesterday. But just allowing yourself to have that time to just close out the day. And I don't think most people are doing that. I think most people are taking in what happened today into tomorrow and then just continuing
Mm-hmm.
to catapult. And you're like, not catapult, avalanche. It's continuing to avalanche. And then, of course, we wonder, why are we so stressed? And why does life feel chaotic? Because we're not following the rhythms
Right.
that are there.
And you said something so important about the avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
Because, even though your physical body goes to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
your soul is and your spirit are still awake.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you can go to sleep and still wake up frustrated. You go to
Yeah.
sleep and you just wake up. I know we've all had those moments where we just woke up, nothing even happened yet. And we're already just like
Wired.
angry at
Yeah.
the world.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So we have to be careful, and be intentional about that closure and that reflection and ending the day, with our mind and our heart focused on the right things.
Exactly. So I know we wanted to leave all of you with 2 specific questions, and we're very curious to hear your answers. And number 1 is, when you think about your habits, what do your habits say that you believe?
Mm.
And that can be good habits or bad habits, but your habits are speaking something. The behaviors and things that you're doing consistently are basically telling to the world and those around you, this is what I believe. This is what I do. And then also, if someone were to watch you for a day, what would they think you worship? Where are you spending the most of your time? Where are your thoughts going to? When your hands are idle, what are they doing? So we just want to leave you with food for thought on that, because it's really important to understand how your habits shape your life, whether you realize it or not. They are leading you down a path. They are leading you to something. And like you said, there's an end result waiting for every habit that you have. And so we hope that this episode was helpful. If you have questions or things or topics that you're like, hey, we would love to have you guys talk a little bit more about, leave us a comment. We'd love to talk about some other things, but any last words?
Let's just be intentional, guys. Let's be intentional about how we end our days and intentional about how we start our days.
There we go. And we will see you all in the next episode. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Confident Kingdom Woman podcast, where we're focused on building your faith, confidence, and discipline so you can fully step into the woman God created you to be. If this spoke to you, share it with another woman, and we'll see you in the next episode.